Titanique is a hysterical satire of the 90s film Titanic and all the fanfare seen through the eyes of Celine Dion. Rob Lindley, a writer and director based here in Chicagoland, plays Ruth, Rose's mother in the show. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
You know, a lot of people go there for their love of Celine Dion, maybe the story of Rose and Jack, but by the end, I mean, everyone is living for Ruth. That's all I got to say.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's very nice to hear. I hope that I'm just adding to the fandom and not taking away from anyone's love of those other two things. But I'm having the time of my life. It's a dream role and a dream cast, such a supreme group of human beings to be with every night.
The show's in New York, in London, Chicago, obviously, Sydney, Paris, Toronto, Montreal,
Yeah.
worldwide phenomenon. I mean, tell us a little bit about, when you heard that there was going to be a Chicago cast, a Chicago show, what that was like. Had you seen the show before?
Well, I'm a big believer in timing and synergy, and I will tell you this. I had heard about the show. I'd actually met Constantine, one of the writers, many years ago. Uh, and I was friends of friends with Marla, so it's always been on my radar. But when I went to New York last summer, about a year, it might have been about a year ago now, I went to New York to see Oh Mary and to see Titanique with two of my best friends from Chicago who don't live here anymore. While we were there, we ran into Porchlight people in the lobby, and I was like, "What are you guys doing here?" And both my friend that I was with and myself were founding artistic associates with Porchlight. So I have a long history with Porchlight, but haven't worked for them for probably 7 or 8 years at this point. And they're like, well, yeah, we're going to bring Titanic to Chicago. And I was like, huh, interesting. And then one thing after another happened. And honestly, I watched it. Usually when I watch shows, I can't help but think, oh, what would I play?
Yeah.
Because it's what I do for a living. It's hard for me to sit and enjoy a show and just be an audience member.
Yeah.
I sat there that night and I was just an audience member and I just loved it. And when the opportunity came around, I made a quick tape and quickly found that I was going to be Ruth, and really fell in love with the director and another one of the writers, Ty Blue. He was so generous with me. He everything I brought to the table, he welcomed. He also helped prune and made me stay on the right track. Made sure that Ruth wasn't too mean. And he also really trusted my experience as a Chicago writer and someone who has a history with Second City and Improv Olympic and Baby Wants Candy, and let me pitch things that would help make the show more Chicago centered.
Yeah.
There would be some jokes, and I wasn't the only one who did this, but there'd be some jokes in the script where we're like, that's awfully New York. Like we don't have that jewelry store here. Why don't we, do this? Or that seems a little dated. Why don't we add in a joke about P. Diddy? Like we would, and he was really great to welcome all those things.
And I'll say this: I've seen the show several times, and each time it's different, whether the audience reaction or some of the jokes. So I love that, like that it's not a set show; that it's a living piece of art that evolves over what becomes popular in pop culture.
It's a really cool hybrid, and I think that's the challenge of doing it, being in it, and certainly of directing it, is that there are parts of it that are like a Swiss watch. It really is timing, and with that many incarnations and that many casts, there are some lines that it just works if you do the rhythm like this, and the rhythm has to be like this. So there's parts of it that are like that. And then there are parts of it, and specifically roles, like I would say probably Claire, who plays Celine, and myself probably have the most leeway,
Yeah,
where they can say, oh, right here, when she says, Mother, it's not fair, just list three things that aren't fair and say whatever you want, you know? Um,
yeah.
so it's a cool mix, but we definitely try to, you know, when well, Patty LuPone has always been a role in our show. And while we've been doing this, the culture's view of Patty LuPone has changed in many ways. Like we
Yeah.
did, when we were doing it, it was just kind of a callback to her fun cell phone explosion. And then we were doing it while she was really losing favor and made some maybe public missteps. And so to the point where she was getting
Yes.
booed when she came out. This cardboard cutout of her was getting booed. We're like, well, we got to respond to this, right?
And you respond to it in the perfect way.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I had a couple shows where I maybe went a little too hard on her, and a really good friend of mine who's also an improviser said, maybe try instead of cutting Patty down, build Audra up and see how that feels. And it was the best note. And now when I mention Audra on stage in reference to Patty, last night it stopped the show. I've never, I was at the top of the staircase ready to go on with my monologue and they were still applauding. Um, it's fun. It's so great. I love
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, your monologue, you have a part of the show that just really, really shines. Talk a little bit about preparing for that. Maybe the first time you did it on stage, because it's a
her.
big moment
It's a
in the
big
show, and
moment.
I'm living for it. It's one of the main reasons why I love going back to see the show.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. So they're in the script. It starts with that moment I mentioned earlier where Rose says, "It's just not fair, Mother. It's not fair." Which the direction I was given was list three things that aren't fair. And then the stage direction says Ruth then tears apart the scenery with something about a Steppenwolf worthy style. So I love that even in the script it was mentioning Chicago.
I
That
love it.
a Steppenwolf worthy performance that rivals Jessica Chastain's Oscar press tour in 2023 or something like that. And in the audition, I think I did a little bit of Margaret White from Carrie, and I did Jennifer Coolidge from White Lotus, and um, then when we got into the room, I don't know, I call it a gay jukebox. I've always been one of those queens who can just quote movies that are the things that like me and my friends watch over and over again, or stuff that they play at Sidetrack on Musical Mondays.
Yeah.
So I just kind of do a little mix of uh, a lot of different strong divas in my life. But because I'm a nerdy writer type, I always wanted to make sure it made sense for Ruth as the character in reference to her daughter. So I tried to find pop cultural monologues, borrow heavily from them. Some of them they're pretty much exact quotes, but I put
Yeah.
it together in what I call a gay jukebox, and whatever I'm feeling that night is what I do. So usually I quote Mommy Dearest, and then I do a big section of Dolores Claiborne, which is one of my favorite movies, and the actress Judy Parfitt is the bitch in that, if I can say the
You
B.
can say it. Yeah.
Okay. We are all saying after Titanic, we're going to be ruined for other shows. We're going to just be swearing all the time. Um, anyway, I do a little Dolores Claiborne. I do Margaret White from Carrie. Sometimes I do Clue. I do a little tiny bit of Young Frankenstein, Madeline Kahn. And I always end with Dixie Carter from Designing Women.
Yeah.
So,
When you start with that designing women, you
oh,
can
I
already
love
hear
it.
the laughs. Yeah.
Well, that's there's a couple different moments where it's like I'm taking attendance of how many queens are in the audience and how old they are. Because sometimes it's also there's a moment where we reference Grinder, and when people hear the Grinder sound, you can tell how many queens are out there. And if sometimes we have to rush to the punchline of the joke so everybody can laugh, but
Yeah.
sometimes we so yeah, it's fun and it's mine. And
Yeah.
if you ever see any of my wonderful understudies, they do it completely different. Um, I've also had some of my understudies ask permission. They're like, "Can I just record you doing this so I can try to remember all the things you're doing?" Because it's not in the script, but it's a loving tribute and send up to some of the strong women actresses who I think especially for those of us who are othered and queer, those were our biggest inspirations as actors, and it's a fun opportunity to put on a kind of light drag and
Yeah.
try those personas on. And I find that there's an actress inside of me who's been wanting to get out for a long time, so it's a great release.
And Ruth makes it all possible.
She does.
And I love too, just since you mentioned that. Obviously, there was a time and place where, all we had was Designing Women or watching Mommy Dearest, and you
Yep.
watch those either on your by yourself, but when you had a community, then you could kind of share those moments that other people
Right.
had together. And I love that the show gives a space for people to enjoy that and kind of remember those times in a shared space.
Well, and I think that queer people have our own version of like a sporting event. And it's like those are the things that you and your friends can get together and talk about. Like I was that person in college, even though we were all in the closet, like me and my roommates, we would watch Soap Dish and break down a Sally Fields monologue and be like, oh
Yeah.
my God. Oh, and that part right there, she's acting like she did in Sybil. Oh, and this is so Steel Magnolias, what she's doing there. And we talked about it like it was sports. And I think that's what Drag Race is for a lot of people now too.
Yeah.
A lot of queer humans and and straight folks love it too now. Um, gather in bars to watch something live.
Yeah.
It's our version of a Super Bowl or the World Series.
And also too, you mentioned the grinder noise, but also Beast. When that comes out, you can also tell who's a Drag Race fan.
Yep, who the Drag Race fans are. Last night we had Shea Coulee as our cameo, and it was incredible to actually have someone from who's some of her moments, the Sasha Velour flowers being referenced. I told her, I'm like, we should have given you a trigger warning before you came out.
That is awesome. As far as audience reaction, because you mentioned it, several times as far as, certain jokes landing with certain audiences, because obviously there's people who love the movie. There's
Yeah,
people who love Celine Dion, some people who want to laugh. Some people who are, are more pop culture, that's more their references. I mean, kind of there's something for everybody, but I've seen
absolutely.
because I've seen the show multiple times that different jokes land with different people, but everybody's always laughing and everyone's always like in on it. Yeah.
Well, what is so great is that Ty and Marla and Constantine have given the public and the culture a script that is so dense with laughs. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter if you don't get every single one because guess what? There's four more coming right after it.
Yeah.
So, and some of it is physical comedy. There are times that I mean, I question having super young people at this show because there is quite a bit of language. But there's sometimes where, or you'll see like kind of a stoic father figure out there who's going to laugh at just the physical comedy. Like if you like Mel Brooks, Three Stooges kind of comedy, you're going to get that. There's physical stuff that is just funny. There's dumb puns that you're going to just laugh at.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, I
It's
mean, this is
something for
completely
everybody.
off topic, but the couple of times that I've gone, I've actually run into friends of mine who have brought their husbands, straight couples,
Yeah.
and they, we saw them after the show, and they were all like, "This was wonderful! Like to be able to
Yeah.
have a space where they can just enjoy everything. Like it's
Yes.
for everybody. Obviously, some people are going to laugh at some more things, but it's
Exactly.
for everybody. Everyone is going to have a good time enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a much needed oasis of joy right now.
Yeah,
And I love that on top of that, it is unapologetically queer the whole time.
yeah,
All of those things can exist at the same time.
100%.
It
Yeah,
doesn't mean it's just for queer people, but it is by and for queer people in a major way. But anybody is going to enjoy this and just have a moment to sit in the dark in the nice, cool air conditioning and have some joy, have some laughs.
yeah. We don't get too much of that, and I heard that the house lights are pretty much up where you can see the audience reaction. I mean, what's it like during
It,
your parts or those ensemble parts to see kind of those smiles on people's faces? Because we don't get too many of those communal moments.
yeah, it's interesting. The house lights are out as they would be in any theater, but because of how beautifully intimate that space is, we can see almost everyone in that front section. I've actually had more than one moment where, because it's Ruth, I can get away with it, where, if someone gets up to use the washroom during my monologue, and they come back, oh, you're going to be part of the show, darling. Or I'll just say to someone, I'm like, we can see you, right? This is this isn't a Netflix show. We're not streaming. We're here. Just remind everybody that because people get into like their watching zone
Yeah,
phase, and I'm like, I can see you.
Yeah, and here's the thing: the more that I get to see you on stage, you mentioned this will be the last thing, but when you said your trip to New York and you're like, I went to see Titanic
Yeah.
and Mary, I'm putting it out there, Mary Todd Lincoln in your future.
Yes,
That would,
please put it out there, darling. I'm
yeah,
campaigning for it too.
yeah. Cola, if you're listening, please, we need this to happen, a
Everyone,
Chicago version.
we're ready when this
We,
regional theater production happens. I've got it all cast in my head, darling. I'm ready.
oh my goodness, I love Rob. Thank you so much. I could talk to you for 5 hours and still not
I
have enough.
would
That's all I
love
gotta
that.
say.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course, through July 13th, Titanic at Broadway Playhouse, BroadwayInChicago.com for those tickets. Go check it out. Go check it out multiple times. It's something
Yeah.
for everybody. Trust me, you don't want to miss this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.